Welcome to the presentation we're doing with a webinar on leaders in housing counseling and the National Housing Resource Center in conjunction with leaders in experts in providing work in on student debt and government student loans and private loans as well to the extent we can. We have an excellent group of people here and we have a very strong turnout for the workshop, so very glad everybody is joining us today. I want to do a particular thank you to the people that are our presenters. So we have Natalia Abrams and Cody Hunanian from Student Debt Crisis. We have Sarah Lewis from AFL-CIO, and we have attorney Josh Cohen from Student Loan Lawyer, all of whom are leading experts in the field and will help us as a housing counseling community think about how most effectively to work with our clients around student loan debt and the best options for them in different situations. I think this is a three-part series of webinars, and this is the first one of three, and please make a point of participating in the next two as well. It gives you a full picture of the most basic elements of this and will hopefully equip you to do work with your clients and also know when you should be referring to an attorney or referring to other resources for more in-depth work. But as we all know, this is a very large issue for the communities we work in, and it's very, very helpful for us to get to bring people up to date on what the best tools, most important tools are that's available. A popular question is about the slides that we present. Matthew, how do you want to handle that?
So we did try to upload them into the Handouts tab. If you don't see the Handouts tab in the GoToWebinar control panel, there'll be an orange arrow that you click, and that should open up the control panel, and you should see the Handouts tab. It should be, the slide should be there as a PDF, and you can just download them from there. I would just ask that folks just kind of say that the slides are for your personal use only. And there's a lot of kind of information that's going to be shared in the webinar, and so that the slides can be helpful for you to jog your memory, but please don't share them with people without all the information that the folks that are on the call are going to be sharing. If there is any, sometimes there's an issue uploading them when the webinar has already started. If folks are having trouble downloading, then we can also circulate them after the call.
Great. So, and hopefully everybody knows, but this is the National Housing Resource Center. We're an advocacy group for the nonprofit housing counseling community and the clients that we serve. And I'm Bruce Storr-Palin. That was Matthew Goodrow, and we're doing lots of work to help build support for housing counseling and for better opportunities for low and moderate income home buyers, homeowners, renters, and homeless, and rental situations as well. The whole idea is really trying to get the voice of housing counseling and its clients as part of the advocacy and policy work that's being done in this country. This is one small part of what we do, and plenty more, and please reach out to us if you're not already involved in the good work we're doing. But with that, I'd really like to turn this over to Natalia, Cody, Sarah, and Josh and their expertise, and let's dive in on what we can do on working with our clients on student loan issues.
Great. Thank you so much, Bruce. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. We have a really great sized crowd. If you have questions, please put them in the question box, and we'll try to get to them as we go through the presentation. As Bruce mentioned, my name is Natalia Abrams. I'm the Executive Director of Student Debt Crisis, an advocacy organization dedicated to fundamentally reforming the way in which we pay for higher education and helping student loan borrowers navigate the complicated process of federal loan repayment. I also have our digital director, Cody Hunanian, on the call. We have Joshua Cohen, the student loan lawyer, and Sarah Lewis, the senior lead researcher for policy for the AFL-CIO. So thank you again to the team that we have. And with that, I think we should just get right into it. So today, we're going to be covering how student loan debt has been impacting the housing market, an understanding of the different types of student loans that are out there, not just federal and private, but the different types of federal loans, how to find those student loans, federal student loan repayment options, and a little bit about private student loan debt relief companies, which, as you'll see when we get into it, how that ties into the repayment options. And we've also included a list of links in the resource section for you to follow up after this webinar. So we'll do a brief review. Actually, this needs to be updated. We have now hit $1.4 trillion of total student loan debt. This just continues to rise while we don't take care of it enough, and so we really need to stop this from hitting $2 trillion. This is also just the amount that we know of with federal loans. It could be, and we believe it's much higher, from people that took out seconds from their homes, took out personal private loans. This is not the full story. It's just this. It's the lowest number that we have of the total student loan debt number. And we see, and we've heard from the National Association of Realtors and from other folks in your industry, that this is impacting many first-time homeowners or possible home buyers to qualify due to huge amounts of student loan debt that start around $30,000 and go up into the multiple hundreds of thousands and costly monthly payments. According to the LA Times, about a year or two ago, they calculated that every $250 in your monthly student loan payment is a decrease in the purchasing power of $44,000. As I mentioned before, we're seeing payments starting at $250 a year. Frankly, lucky if you have that. Most likely, if that's your payment, you're on an income-driven repayment program, which we'll go into, which can affect your ability to buy a home. But the average student loan payments we're seeing are $400 to about $1,000 for federal student loans. This is also the low number because we are still waiting to get all of the raw data that will show the true numbers of this. But roughly, this is the amount of home sales lost. I personally believe this is a much higher number. But as you can see, student loan debt is having a direct impact on the housing community. And just a refresher, so we've reached 44 million Americans with student loan debt. We have 8 million, that's a low number, 8 to 11 million people that have defaulted federal loans. That's something essentially worse than bankruptcy. It completely eliminates their purchasing power for a home, a car, even a basic cell phone if they are in default. And currently, we have 4 million people enrolled in the repayment plans we're going to speak about today. That number of 8 million should not exist on the federal side because of all of the repayment programs we're going to talk to you about today. The federal government has provided opportunities if you're getting into trouble, and so we should, one of our goals at Student Debt Crisis is to eliminate anyone in federal loan default because there is an answer for them and a program for them. Yep, and these are some of the same numbers, but there was a new program, it's the third number down, the 5 million, that came out that we will talk about today. It came out late last December, called Repay, which is revised Pay As You Earn. And with that program, 5 million more student loan borrowers are eligible. And so we feel that that is our big job, and we would love your help from the Housing Resource Center and housing counselors to help us enroll as many student loan borrowers as possible. And with this new program, so many more are eligible. The White House, through their Student Debt Challenge, which we are a part of and the NHRC is a part of, has set a goal to enroll 2 million more people in repayment plans. So that, we're going to teach you about this today, but we really hope you go out into the field and help with our job that we need to do of enrolling as many people as possible. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Cody Hunanian, who's going to go over the different types of student loans.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to start off at what seems like maybe an obvious point, but it absolutely is not. The types of student loans that are out there, and particularly the amount of different federal student loans that exist is something that certainly comes up often when we speak with the borrowers that we're in contact with, and you'd be actually surprised how few borrowers actually know of what type of student loan they have. So we're just going to cover the basics there, and then we'll jump into the repayment options. So just so that we're on the same page, we're starting off with just a quick vocabulary lesson. Just so that you know, when we start talking about these repayment options, yearly income is going to be based on an individual's adjusted gross income. If a borrower files separately, repayments are based on that individual's AGI, but you will see that for most of the repayment programs, if borrowers are filing jointly, they will be using the combined AGI to generate the repayment amounts under income-driven repayment programs, and we're going to dive into that shortly. Next is the poverty line, and I'm bringing that up because the federal repayment programs are often calculated using a formula that includes the poverty index. And so, you know, very obviously the poverty index is determined per state. It's something that's published and is widely available, and it's going to be using family size and state of residence, and we'll look at how that plays out later when we go over some calculations. And what is discretionary income? And we talked about that today. Discretionary income is the amount of income that the government indicates is supposedly extra, it's outside of your necessities. We, in calculating income-driven repayment programs, say that it's 150% over the poverty index. If you make over 150%, that is your discretionary income, and that will play a role in calculating your monthly payments. And this is going to be coming up right now when we start talking about the types of student loans. The first and older federal student loan program is what is called the Family Federal Education Loan Program. Federal Family Education Loan Program. These are older loans. These were loans that the money was issued by a bank or a financial institution, but was organized via government systems and guaranteed by the federal government as well. Next, we have the direct loan system. This is the newer student loan system. Since July of 2010, all new federal student loans have been direct loans, and that means that the funds for these loans have come directly from the federal government. And so, as I just mentioned, the two different funding sources for federal student loans are the direct loan system coming straight from the funds of the federal government and the FFEL loan system. So you will have borrowers that have what constitutes a federal student loan, but that was issued via what could be a Wells Fargo or some other banking institution. So what kind of loans are issued or awarded underneath these programs? So under the federal direct loan program, you have what is called direct subsidized or unsubsidized loans. Those are for students. Subsidized loans means that the government will subsidize the cost of interest at certain times during repayment. You have direct graduate plus loans. These are going to be loans that have a slightly higher interest rate because these are issued to graduate students. Next, you have the direct parent plus loans. These are loans that are issued to parents of students. Again, this will have a higher interest rate, and there will be different repayment options available to this type of federal direct loan. And then last, there's the direct consolidated loan. There are many instances in which borrowers would be interested in consolidating either their older FFEL loans or their current direct loans into a new direct consolidated loan. And next we've got the FFEL loan system again, so the FFEL loan system. Again, we've got these subsidized and unsubsidized loans, what we call Stafford loans. These are for students under the FFEL program. We have, again, graduate plus loans. We have also another parent plus loan system. And again, remember, this is a graduate loan and a parent plus loan, but these are not the same as the direct graduate plus loans and the direct parent plus loans that came out of the newer system. And again, there is an option with loans of this type to stay in the FFEL loan program by consolidating your loans. You know, it really, you'll see when we play out the income-driven repayment plan shortly, but for the most part, FFEL loans would probably want to attempt to consolidate into direct loans when possible. And then last is the Perkins loan program. Perkins loans are issued through the universities or institutions themselves. And this is a whole third program with some other different outlying factors for qualification in the coming programs. So we just covered all of the different types of federal student loans that are out there. But what confuses many of the borrowers that we speak to is, frankly, do they have a federal loan or a private loan to begin with? So remember, there's all these federal student loan options, but there is also a private market out there for borrowers who are interested in lending outside of the federal loan system. But that can change greatly the repayment options and benefits that are awarded to these loans. So as you see, the federal student loan system is need-based. There's an option for possibly being awarded subsidized loans that have subsidized interest. You've got a fixed interest rate. There's many choices for different repayment plans that we'll be covering shortly. There's opportunities to defer your loans, so to put them on pause if you are faced with some economic hardship. I have here loan forgiveness. I have that in quotations because there seems to be a great deal of misinformation about what this is, but there are some mechanisms for loan forgiveness after 10, 20, or 25 years under the federal student loan program. And then last is this great program, default rehab. If you find yourself defaulted on your federal loan, there's a chance to participate in a rehabilitation program to have your loans back to good standing. And we will be covering that in our future webinars. And then right here, just in comparison, we've got private loans. So they're not need-based, they're credit history-based. So if you're having issues with your credit or unable to access financing, this is going to be a problem with getting a private loan, and it's why the federal student loan system is so useful for so many people. Right here, you got interest begins immediately. There's no subsidized program for the private student loans. Part of subsidized federal student loans means that there's a 6-month grace period after graduation. You don't have to pay until 6 months after. Private student loans, they don't have that. As soon as you get the loan, interest begins immediately. There's also the possibility for variable interest rates in private loans. There's no standard repayment plans across the board. And there's no guarantee that a private lender will offer you a hardship deferment. So if you're faced with economic hardship, you're faced with the full burden of that private student loan. And last we have here, there isn't necessarily a rehab program for defaulted private student loans, which can be very difficult for people who defaulted. However, there are some opportunities for private loan borrowers to negotiate with their lenders, and I think that's where experts like Joshua Cohen really come in as a useful tool for borrowers who really need some leverage against their private lender. So again, what are some of the benefits of federal student loans? Forbearance and deferment. You've got these options written out into law, and you can absolutely take advantage of them when you need to. Rehab out of default. There's income-driven repayment plan. You've got approval regardless of credit. You can consolidate. That is guaranteed, and a right to you to consolidate into loans. And last, there's opportunities for forgiveness, discharge, and cancellation. These are all great consumer protections and benefits that are offered to federal student loan borrowers. And all of those same great benefits are not offered to private student loans. So I just want to clarify how important it is that these federal student loans are so useful. So how do you know what type of student loans your clients have? You can find federal student loans in the government database. If it's a federal student loan, there's a 99% chance it's in this database. The website's called nslds.ed.gov, and that stands for the National Student Loan Data System. You can go there. There's information about the type of loan, the servicer, and repayment history. It's very useful. If you're looking to see if your client has a private student loan, if it's not in the database, it's probably a private student loan. Does the loan have a cosigner? If it does, there's a good chance that this indicates it's a private student loan. Also, you can always check a credit report or contact the loan servicer or debt collectors directly. And these are just some screenshots so you guys are aware of what this website looks like. We use it all the time. This is the NSLDS system, and this is, and as you see, there's a button for financial aid review right there. Click that, and it takes you to this system right here. And so you can see there's all sorts of information about the types of loans, the date that it was awarded, amounts. This becomes very important when you're trying to find the accurate information about a client's student loans, because very often clients are not quite aware of their own student loan situation. And here's some more screenshots. This is something we work with every day. All right, and with that, I'm going to pass that off to Sarah Lewis to cover what we're all here for today, repayment plans.
Hi, everybody. So go ahead and get started on the things that we probably get the most questions about, and what you're probably the most interested in is the repayment plans that are available and your right to more affordable payments. Next slide. Next slide. There we go. So an important caveat, we want to make sure these plans only apply to federal loans. Cody touched on this. These things are not available to private loans. And another very important thing to keep in mind when taking out loans, we're considering other means of financing a college education. So next slide. So under current law, the default plan is a 10-year standard plan that can be extended up to even 30 years, depending on the balance of your federal and private student loans. When you go into repayment, you will automatically be put into one of these plans. These plans are designed to pay off the balance in full, so that means the payments can be much larger every month. Now, in addition to those two standard plans, there are the graduated repayment plans. There's the 10-year graduated repayment plan and the 25-year extended graduated repayment plan. These plans are also designed to pay off the balance of the loans in full. They start with a much smaller payment, which increases every year until the loan is paid in full. Now, the increases are not tied to your increases in income or wealth or anything. They are just automatic and can become unaffordable for some borrowers for that reason. So we'll get into the different income-driven repayment plans that are available and for which you have to apply. Next. Got a bit of a delay on the slides for my screen here. So the first plan is the income contingent repayment plan. This is an older plan that is based on 20% of your discretionary income. Most people tend to stay away from this one and go with IBR or new IBR. This is probably the most popular plan. It comes with a 25-year repayment schedule, and we'll get into the different repayment schedules momentarily. The most recent plans are pay-as-you-earn and revised pay-as-you-earn, or repay. These programs are designed to be more generous, to make it a little easier for people to fit those student loan payments into their monthly budget. So here you see the different amounts of your discretionary income that are used for paying your loans. Now, discretionary income, that Cody touched on, is based on your adjusted gross income minus 150% of the poverty rate. This does take into account family size, but does not take into account the cost of living in your area, inflation, or anything else. This is based purely on your income. So as you see, the income contingent repayment plan is 20%, IBR is 15%, and the rest of the plans are the new IBR, pay-as-you-earn, and the revised pay-as-you-earn. Limit your monthly payments to 10% of discretionary income. These plans all have different qualifications that you might want to look at when considering which plan to enroll in yourself, or as you're talking with other people looking for options. Another thing to consider is the length of time to repay the loans. Now, at the end of the periods that you're seeing on the screen now, the balance of loans that's not repaid through your income-driven repayment plan is forgiven. So for ICR and traditional IBR, or income-based repayment, that's 25 years. For new IBR and pay-as-you-earn, it's 20 years. For repay, if you have only undergraduate loans, it's 20 years. If you have graduate loans, even a single graduate school loan, the repayment period under revised pay-as-you-earn is 25 years. It does still carry the lower payment amount, though. This slide is very, very, very important. At the end of that repayment period, when your remaining balance is forgiven, the IRS considers that imputed income that is added to your income for tax purposes at the end of the year. This is something very important for people to keep in mind as they're planning any large purchases, or even choosing which plan to go into. For all of those plans at the end of that 20 or 25 years, people can be hit with a pretty large tax bill. This is something that people are talking about in DC, but we don't know in however many years if we're going to have that addressed. Keep that in mind, very important. So we're going to do a quick next slide. This is a quick comparison of the different available repayment plans. Memorize all of this completely. Very important to keep in mind. As you see, the income contingent repayment plan is the only one that takes into account the actual amount that you borrowed, whereas the others are just based on your income and family size. This really just kind of goes over the different the differentiations that we just covered on the previous slide. And if you do download these slides, I recommend printing these out just for quick reference for yourself. And then on the next slide, we talk about the difference between the new plans, pay-as-you-earn, and revised pay-as-you-earn. These have specific qualifications that people should be aware of when they're making their plans for repayment and the rest of their financial plans. So under pay-as-you-earn, you cannot have had a single federal student loan before October 1st, 2007, and you must have received a loan or direct consolidation loan after October 1st, 2011. That means this is for people who only recently finished their federally financed education. So not everyone qualifies, which is why we have the revised pay-as-you-earn. We'll get into that in a moment. Under pay-as-you-earn, you do need to have a partial financial hardship in order to qualify. Usually, sort of top of the or back of the envelope calculation, if you owe more in student loans than you make, then you would qualify. Another way to think about it is if your monthly payment would be lower under pay-as-you-earn than it would under a 10-year standard repayment plan, you probably qualify. Again, we have the quick reminder, payments are equal to 10% of your discretionary income, and if at any point your income increases to the point that that 10% would be more than what you would pay under the 10-year standard repayment plan, you'd be bumped out of the pay-as-you-earn. Remaining debt at the end of that 20 years is forgiven, and again, that is taxable income. Now, under repay, the timing qualifications are removed, as well as the partial financial hardship requirement. So anyone with direct loans can qualify for the repay program. Again, the payments are equal to 10% of your discretionary income. And one great thing, because of the removal of the partial financial hardship, if that 10% of discretionary income payment does exceed your 10-year standard repayment, you will remain in the program, and your payment would be then that higher amount. That can help you get out of debt faster. Always something to keep in mind. Another very important thing to remember under repay, even if you and your spouse file your taxes separately, your spouse's income will be taken into consideration for calculation of that 10% of discretionary income. Another important thing to remember is that if you have a single graduate school loan under repay, your full repayment time goes to 25 years instead of 20. Next slide. These are some other benefits you should keep in mind when considering repay. With the no financial hardship requirement, and more borrowers are allowed to access repay. Another thing that's great positive benefit of repay is the negative amortization is no longer a big issue. Oftentimes people's payments under these plans is less than the interest that is accrued each month. Under repay, part of that interest is subsidized or paid by the government, so that the total student loan balance increases more slowly, which can lead to a big benefit at the end when that tax hit comes, or when possibly getting those loans paid off. And there we go. I believe that is all I've got for you, and we'll hand it over to Josh.
All right, Sarah, thank you for that. So let's continue on in talking about comparison of other plans versus repay. And Sarah said most of it, but we'll say it again to hammer it home. So again, with every other plan, with the exception of repay, if the borrower files taxes separately, then only the borrower's adjusted gross income is used to figure out their payment. With repay, it doesn't matter how you file. If you're married, your spouse's income will affect the repayment. So many times it might make sense for married couples to file their taxes separately and go on a plan such as IBR. Repay is very useful for people that are single, or perhaps if the spouse doesn't have a significant income, then it won't affect it. But it would encompass having a tax professional do a hypothetic on the taxes, filing jointly versus separately, and it's worth it, especially if you're dealing with people that are looking at buying a house, because how they file the taxes is also going to affect their AGI when it comes to looking at the mortgage. So there's a lot of sophistication and math here, and it's good if you know how to use a calculator. Let's move on to the next slide. And so here we talk about the forgiveness. Remember, repay, like all of the income-driven repayment plans, does come with the forgiveness eventually. If the loans that are enrolled in repay are for undergraduate studies only, you will get forgiveness after 20 years of payment. If there are any graduate level loans enrolled in repay, then the repayment period is 25 years, and then forgiveness will kick in. It's still the exact same formula, but it's a difference of those 5 years if it's graduate versus undergraduate. Let's move on to the next one. And I believe we've got an example here. No, just before that, let's talk about how to qualify for these different payment plans. Again, you've got ICR's income contingent, IBR's income-based repayment, pay is pay as you earn, and repay is revised pay as you earn. So if we start with income contingent, direct federal loans can have this. Now, the real reason why ICR is important is if any clients have a parent plus loan. The only one of these plans that a parent plus loan can have is income contingent repayment. And here's the technicality. That parent plus loan must be inside a direct consolidation loan. If they have a parent plus loan, they must consolidate, then they can have ICR. They can't have any other payment plan. So ICR is for direct loans. IBR is the only one of these plans that a field loan can have. So any federal loan, Stafford or Plus, can have a Graduate Plus, can have IBR, whether it's direct loan or a field loan. And then there's a partial financial hardship, which again in plain English is IBR is less than the 10-year standard payment plan. Going to pay, again, it must be a direct federal loan, it must have a partial hardship, and it has those date requirements. Must not have had a loan balance before October 1st, 2007, and must take out a new loan after October 1st, 2011. Repay did away with those borrower requirements or those dates and did away with the partial financial hardship. As long as it's a direct federal loan, it can have repay. So if you've got a client that has a field loan and they want repay, they have to consolidate the loan, bring it over to direct loans. All right, now let's move on to the next slide because that one, I believe, is an example. Let's give this a shot. So Mary is a 35-year-old single mom. She's got 3 kids. She makes $35,000 a year. She's a full-time employee at a local charitable foundation. That's important for a webinar we'll be doing later. Her federal loan balance is $50,000. If we roll through to the next slide, and we'll take a look at the calculator, which I believe is in the resources for the address. Here we've got a direct student loan, and we'd fill it all out. She's single, and at the end of the day, here's what we get. Her standard repayment plan would be $513 a month. That is probably not affordable on a $35,000 a year salary, even if she was single with no kids. She could do a 10-year graduated payment that starts low at $288 a month, but the last 2 years will be $865 a month. If she grows in rank and starts earning more money, that might work for her, but in this economy, who knows? She can do an extended fixed plan, which is a 25-year plan, $272 a month for 25 years. Then she can do an extended graduated. Starts at $179 a month. Every 2 years it goes up, and her 25th year will be $473 a month. That used to work. It doesn't work anymore because we're not guaranteed to get raises every 2 years, nor are we guaranteed to be with the same employer for 25 years. Then in blue, we have all of these income-dependent plans. The first one is Repay. She'd pay $0 a month. Pay as you earn, 0. IBR, 0. IBR for new borrowers is 0. And income contingent repayment is $179 because the formula is slightly different. That second column, last monthly payment, don't ever pay attention to that. This makes assumptions that there will be increases in income and other things that are so speculative that I never pay attention to it. All we care about is our first monthly payment. Where are we right now? Every 12 months we re-verify our income, which means every 12 months we're going to rerun the calculations, and all we care about is where are we now? Just like buying a car. What's our payment? That's all we care about right now. And then it tells you about the total payments. Not a huge deal. No one cares how much the car costs. They just care about their monthly payment. Projected loan forgiveness is also speculative because we don't know what payments are going to be each year. The repayment period is based on, again, either a 20 or a 25-year repayment. Repay says 300 months, which is 25 years. The computer doesn't know if there are graduate or just undergraduate loans here, so it puts in what I call the worst-case scenario. We know this stuff better than the computer, but the calculator here can tell you how things look like. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide now that we've done that one. And what we see here is how are we applying for these repayment plans, and what is the timeline going to look like for our client? Because believe it or not, it's not just fill out the paperwork and you're done. The borrower can apply, and here we have hypothetical dates. So on Valentine's Day, we're feeling romantic. Let's get us into a cheaper payment so we can afford roses and other chocolates and things. So we apply. Hopefully it's processed within 15 days, but actually they've got up to 60 days to process it. Let's assume on March 1st we start. The borrower starts the plan. The next, and then the next month, actually as soon as they start the plan, they're going to get a disclosure notice which says, congratulations, here's your payment plan. For the next 12 months, your payment will be X. And then they'll get statements every month to continue making that. Even if their payment is $0 a month, they still get a statement. Do they have to send in a check for $0? No, of course not. Month 9, they should receive a reminder notice that says, hey, it's time to recertify. They can't recertify prior to 9 months. They've got to wait until it's a 90-day window. Month 10, they'll be told that, hey, it's your deadline. You really should get this going because it can take them up to 60 days to do this. Month 11 is the hard deadline. You've got to get that sucker in. If the client gets it in with less than 30 days before the 12-month anniversary, it is possible that they'll get a bill in month 13 for the 10-year standard payment amount because they didn't process the IBR in time. So you really want to be on top of it. The client's got to be on top of it. And as long as they are, everything works. Even if they miss the deadline, they can still reapply. They can always get back on it as long as they're not in default, and that's a whole other issue. But as long as they reapply, they can get back into it, no problem. So let's move on to the next slide. The repayment plan checklist. Number 1, visit the nslds.ed.gov website. That's where you're going to find out about those loans. We had all those slides before that Cody walked us through. Use the repayment estimator to view the options. Those are the calculator. Contact the servicer for the application. You can apply online. I personally like to apply via mail because then we get a green card to prove that it was received. I've had servicers lose an online application. I don't know if there's a hole in the internet, but they lost it. And again, don't forget to reapply. Put in a reminder in as many places as possible. And that is pretty much how we work the process. And then let's talk about private student loan repayment options. And it's pay or don't pay. Hey, look, it's a donut, not because it's sweet, but because it's a big fat 0. You really don't have any options. It's pay or don't pay. That's not an option in my book. If you can't afford it, you're already screwed right out of the gate. This is where, unfortunately, a student loan lawyer is really needed because once they go off the deep end, it becomes potentially a litigation matter. And once that happens, you want a lawyer to at least give whatever advice there is. Not every lender sues. Quite a few of them do. They're always different on what can be done and what can't be done. And I think at this stage, it's better just to hand it off to a lawyer so that everything is covered. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to our next speaker, who I'm blanking on, and they'll go through student loan debt relief scams.
All right, thank you, Joshua. It's Natalia again. And we're just going to quickly go through this. One of the important reasons we bring this up is because it's our job as student loan advocates. We encourage credit counselors, housing counselors to teach people about these programs because there are companies out there that are scamming is probably too strong a word, but misleading student loan borrowers into the fact that they need to pay for simple and basic help, such as enrolling in the repayment programs, enrolling in public service loan forgiveness, which we'll get to at a later seminar. Those things you don't need to pay a professional for, but there are many instances when you do. For example, we have Joshua Cohen and many of the student loan lawyers that he has trained that, if you run into problems with defaulted student loans, problems with private loans, problems where you've been defrauded, you need to contact a student loan lawyer, and that is where Joshua comes in. So we don't want to just get the idea out there that you should never pay for help, but you should just never pay for simple, basic help. And so what's going on with these debt relief scams is that they're third-party private companies that are doing loan consolidation for a fee and also trying to get people to enroll in these programs. The biggest thing they say is, have you heard of Obama's new loan forgiveness program? Obama created pay as you earn and repay. He did not create a new loan forgiveness program. In fact, public service loan forgiveness was done under President Bush's administration, so that's not even true. Both the FBI, Better Business Bureau, the Department of Education, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau have all issued alerts on this. In fact, the Department of Education and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau have also started to notify and shut down some of these companies for doing this. And recently, Student Debt Crisis did a report with NerdWallet on this, so we wanted to really investigate what was going on. And many, over 60% of our respondents have seen these these advertisements. The big thing is that many borrowers have paid an average of $600, and they're also paying monthly fees. And that's where I think it's an important thing if you're asking a new client, are they currently paying a third-party company a monthly fee to a student loan debt relief company or student loan private company that they don't need to pay, that they don't need to continue doing it? It's a way that they might be able to free up a little bit of extra income if they're looking to purchase a house. So it's really a consumer protection service announcement that we want to make sure when you're talking to your clients that they know that these third private consolidation companies are unnecessary, and they can do most of this, if not all of it, on their own through the Department of Education and their student loan servicer. And this is just a copy of the announcement that the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau gave, the consumer warning. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to Cody to go over our resources and wrap up the call and before question and answer.
All right. Well, I'm sure we can expect tons of questions. There's always great questions after these webinars. So just quickly, before we get to that, right in front of you right now, this is Joshua's website, studentloanlawyer.com. Please reach out to him if you need his services. Not only is Josh an expert, but he's also trained many experts in this field. This is a resource site that we developed in partnership with the AFL-CIO for what we call the Borrower's Hotline. We have a annual hotline in which we've assisted thousands of borrowers about their repayment options, and we also have this partner website, theborrowers.org, that has a lot of the federal and government information just kind of wrapped into one useful area. And then, of course, there's our website, studentdebtcrisis.org. Please feel free to visit us. We've got tons of great news, thousands of personal stories from student loan borrowers, and are constantly keeping up with what's current just in this space. And last, you guys have the PDF that you can download in the handout section. There's a list at the end of just some valuable resources. These are some great jumping off points to just get you started with looking more into these issues that we've talked about. And so with that, Matthew, if you want to kind of get us going on questions, I'm sure there's a lot of them.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, everyone. That was incredibly helpful, I'm sure, for everyone, for myself as well. We're starting to get a whole bunch of questions flowing in. I was about to say that we didn't have that many questions, so just to remind folks that you can ask questions using the question box. So I'll get started, but yeah, don't be shy to ask questions. We also left plenty of time for Q&A. So one question that a couple people asked different versions of, but one is if you're on an older repayment plan, can you apply for one of the newer plans like pay or repay? And then the related question is, can you switch between plans?
Yes, you can.
All right.
You can always switch your plan. The fact that you're on an older plan is irrelevant. As long as the loan qualifies for the plan that you want to get into, you can get into it.
Great.
I would keep in mind. Go ahead.
No. You go ahead.
Oh, I would add that, the only thing to keep in mind is that if you are on income-based repayment with an older FFEL loan and you want to go into one of the newer plans such as Repay or Pay, you're going to consolidate, and that's actually, once you consolidate, it's a new loan, and that restarts your forgiveness clock, so to speak. So just one note to keep in mind.
Great. This question comes up, I think, every time we do a webinar because people have trouble believing it, but is it possible to pay $0 to have a $0 monthly payment and then to have loans forgiven after 20 years?
Yes.
Yes, it is, as long as you reapply each and every single year. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau calls it the application abyss. There's multiple points where people can get dropped off these programs. So, but if you do dot all your I's, cross all your T's, and don't make a lot of money, yes, you can pay $0 for 20 or 25 years and then have the rest forgiven. You will be taxed at that time, but if you were paying a $0 payment, you're probably insolvent and won't have to worry about that tax bill.
Great. I'll also just mention a few people have asked about whether there'll be a recording available, and we are recording today's session, and we will be posting a recording to our website, which is, and I'll actually put that in the chat box so everyone can see it, but it's hsgcenter.org/media is where we have all the recordings posted. Someone asked, so how is family size determined when that's a relevant consideration?
Okay, family size is you, your spouse, any child that you feel you support at least 50% of the time, even a non-custodial. And support is pretty broad. It's not just child support. Does the child spend afternoons with you, weekends? What's the visitation rights? You know, it's not just monetary support. So and I'm not going to say it's loose enough to say, well, do you hug your child every day? But it's if the client signing the form says, yes, I support this child at least 50% of the time, that counts. In utero counts. So if you or your spouse are pregnant, that still counts. And then the last one is if there are any other adults living in the household that the borrower supports at least half time. So perhaps mom-in-law, or perhaps your brother is couch surfing. If you're supporting them, they count. So it's loose.
All right. And could you just quickly go back over, is it just some of the plans where the spouse's income is included? Is it some of that specifically about the income contingent plan? But could you just recap when the spouse's income is relevant?
The spouse's income is relevant for repay at all times. It doesn't matter how you file, it will always count for repay. For all of the other plans, ICR, IBR, and pay, if you file jointly with your spouse, then it counts. If you file separately, you can exclude the spouse's income.
All right. And someone asked specifically if you're married but in the process of divorcing, would it just be, you know, then when you're tax filing? Sorry.
No, that's actually a good question. There is a checkbox on the repayment application that asks if you're married but separated. And so that would be the situation where if you're getting divorced, you check that box. And under that situation, even if your taxes are filed jointly, then you can exclude it because you're showing that it's moving towards divorce, and they won't penalize you for it.
Great. Sorry, I had one queued up here. Give me just one sec. Okay, so so if a borrower's tax return exhibits a marked divergence from beginning year income estimates, could monthly payments increase retroactively? And I suppose it would go both ways.
The payments will never be retroactive, period. So it's the obligation of the borrower to give accurate information. So if their income has changed since the time they filed their tax return, they're supposed to be using the most up-to-date income. So let's say on their tax return it says they made $100,000 and now they're unemployed. They can check the box that says my income has changed, and then they're going to use their new unemployment. Vice versa. If their tax return showed that they're only making $20,000 and then they got a raise since then, they're really supposed to be using their newer income with their raise.
Okay.
So what happens if it comes in mid-year, so you become unemployed mid-year?
Well, okay, there's no obligation to update them. They actually changed the form. You're not under an obligation to update them. However, you have the right, if your income changes, to request a recalculation. So, of course, if you become unemployed, you're going to request a recalculation based on your lower or non-existent income.
All right. So what happens to your monthly payment while you're in the in the process of applying for one of these income-driven repayment plans?
Well, they have the option. The servicer has the option of giving you a 60-day forbearance. They don't have to give it to you. They usually will. If you have a client that's been on years of forbearance, the servicer is reluctant to give another 60 days, but for the most part, they tend to. If you're not eligible and you don't get the 60 days, then you may just have to skip those 2 months of payments while they process.
All right. This is basically a question on public service loan forgiveness, but so the hypothetical is student works for a nonprofit for 10 years. Is the loan forgiven, and do they need to pay taxes on the forgiven amount?
No. That is the one great thing and the difference of the public service loan forgiveness. That is a program. It's not a repayment plan, I guess, per se, and that is completely tax-free after 10 years, 120 on-time payments with a direct loan that is in a qualifying repayment plan. And we will go over this in depth because there's definitely there's just some specifics that are very important to the program, but that's it in a nutshell.
All right. So someone asked specifically about their situation. I kind of cautioned that it's kind of hard to speak to someone's specific situation without all the details, but I think it may be just easy enough to put her at ease. So someone had advised that she moved to Repay, had been working is 7.5 years into working for the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program, which she was under the impression required financial hardship. So if it doesn't require financial hardship, she's concerned that she was just talked into losing her qualification for the Public Service Loan Forgiveness.
Financial hardship qualifies you for a repayment plan. It has nothing to do with public service loan forgiveness. What's required for public service loan forgiveness are particular repayment plans, such as any of the income-driven payment plans that we spoke about, ICR, IBR, Repay, or Pay, or even the 10-year standard. So the fact that she does or doesn't have a financial hardship goes to, is she on a qualifying payment plan? As long as she's on a qualifying payment plan for a direct loan, she'll qualify for public service loan forgiveness. Again, as long as she has the right employment. So I'm not sure that she was duped. There's still some facts there that we're missing, which I'm not going to ask about. But
and
right.
Just for this person, if they're listed, the only program or one of the repayment plans, for example, that would not qualify would be a graduated repayment plan. So you could have a direct loan, but if you're on a graduated repayment plan, you wouldn't count. So I would definitely encourage that person that asked the question to go to their NSLDS, take a look at exactly where they're at. And I'm happy to extend this. If you would like to email us at info@studentdebtcrisis.org, we'd be happy to kind of figure this out a little bit more offline.
Great, thank you. And I'll just put that into the chat box, info@studentdebtcrisis.org.
Sure.
So if you're on an income-driven repayment plan, are you allowed to overpay?
you're allowed to overpay, but I got to tell you why. Remember that when you're on one of these income plans, you're not even covering interest normally, which means if you're not covering interest, the interest is running up. So any overpayment you make just goes towards the built-up interest. So one, If you're going to make an overpayment to hit the principal, it means you've got to cover all of the interest. 2, if you have the income or the available money to make a payment that covers interest and hit principal, you don't belong on an income-based plan. Income-based plans are for survival. The other plans are to pay off the loan. You can't have your cake and eat it too in this particular issue.
All right. I think there was a loan that you had mentioned that requires consolidation before you can qualify either for repay or maybe for some of the other income-driven plans. Can you just go back to that?
Yeah, so it's the FSEL loan, the family education loan, federal family education loans. These were loans largely given out before 2010, or only given out before 2010. In 2010, President Obama moved us onto the direct loan program. So older loans, the only repayment program they qualify is income-based repayment. All of the other ones would require them to consolidate to a federal direct loan in order to take advantage of these new programs. And this is where it can get confusing because the SSEL loan is also a federal loan. This is all under federal loans. So it's just important. Usually you can tell, I can tell if somebody has an FSEL loan usually just by their date. So if it's somebody before 2010, for example, 80% of the loans given in 2008 were all FSEL loans. So if it's before 2010, 70% of the time that's the loan they're going to have, and they're going to need to consolidate. Now you can consolidate one time from your FSEL to direct loan. However, if someone with an older FSEL loan did a FSEL consolidation, then they are allowed to consolidate again to the direct loan program.
Great. I had a question queued up that I just lost. Give me just 1 second. Well, let me ask something else. So a couple of questions. So one is if there's any like time restrictions on switching between different IBR plans, and then if you could also just talk a little bit about how you go about switching between plans.
There's no time restriction. I mean, you can do it whenever you want to do it. The application process is the exact same as applying for it for the first time. In fact, there's an application out there. It's called the Income-Driven Repayment Application. It is used for the first time you're applying for any of these plans. It's for switching between the plans. It's for recertifying the plans. It's the exact same form. So what you want to do is get a file, and when you file your original paperwork, you keep a copy, and the next year it's the exact same form. And you can just follow the check boxes, and you're only going to check the different one. It says I'm either recertifying, I'm recalculating, or I'm switching. But you file it whenever you are ready to file it.
Great. The question I've been looking for, are there repayment plans for Perkins loans?
No, because Perkins loans are administered by the schools directly, and their payment plan is pay or don't pay. But their payments are usually much lower because the balance on a Perkins loan is at best about $10,000. If you want to get your Perkins loan into any of these other plans we spoke to, you can do that through a consolidation. So if you have Stafford's and Perkins, you can consolidate the two. That pays off the college. It incorporates the Perkins loan, and then that consolidation loan can have ICR, IBR, pay, repay, whatever you want. The beautiful thing about that is you've now helped your cash flow because you've gotten rid of the Perkins loan monthly payment without necessarily increasing your income payment because it's based on income, not the balance of the loan. So it's a great thing to do for people that are applying for a loan. You have one loan with one payment, and it may not have actually, it might help the cash flow.
Great. Someone asked if your loan is in if you're in an income-driven plan and you're in deferment, does that count towards your 25 years or 20 years towards forgiveness?
There's a technicality there. There is one deferment that does count. It's economic hardship deferment. The thing is, if you're in an income-based plan, you shouldn't need a deferment, because in order to qualify for that economic hardship deferment, it's the exact same formula as income-based repayment. Actually, it's the same as income contingent repayment. So if you qualify for economic hardship deferment, you qualify for a really low, probably $0 income-based repayment. There's no reason to take a deferment.
Great. Someone had asked, and this is specifically for Josh, they had asked if your services are free, which I'm pretty sure they're not, but maybe you could just talk a little bit about what it is you do and you know, what the charges someone might expect if they were to contact you and that sort of thing.
All right, I'm glad you asked the question, because I hate soliciting without that question. But since you've asked, here's what I do. No, I don't do free consults, because I don't actually offer a consult. What I offer is an analysis. I do a 30-minute analysis where I'll go over with the client their NSLDS. I like to get that beforehand. I'll show them how to do that. I run through the whole thing, and we run through what are their goals and what's really going on. If they're in default, I get them out. We get them onto an affordable repayment plan. I run all the numbers to make sure that they can afford the plan when we get them out of default, and most people can afford it. I charge $199 for that service. I will do a free analysis if we have a low-income person that is referred to me by local legal aid. And it's not to get brownie points for me, but it's a demonstration that if they qualify for local legal aid, then they really are destitute, and I'll take it. I'll do that as a pro bono. But most people, again, for $199. And one of the reasons I charge is because they shouldn't need me after that consult. What I'm doing is giving them the professional second opinion and the directions. And at the end of the call, I also give them all of the forms. I'll give them the consolidation application. I'll give them the income-driven repayment application. If we do rehabilitation, which we talk about in a different webinar, I'll give them everything they need so they can DIY it, because I want them to be able to do it. They should be able to do it. So that's how I work.
I would just add, for those looking for, as we mentioned, basic, simple help, we've created, that's what's great, to go to theborrowers.org, and then folks can contact Student Debt Crisis, again at info@studentdebtcrisis.org. We do completely free of charge reviews. By no means the depth that Joshua does, being an attorney, but again, for that basic, simple help, if you'd like to start with us, we can help decide whether you would need to work with someone like Josh to really go through the details. So we offer, as an advocacy group, we offer everything free of charge.
And I actually agree. I like to empower people, and I like to think of myself more as a second opinion. You've already done the research and you have clarification questions. I really don't like to accept people that haven't done any research, because I feel like if they did it, they wouldn't need me. And honestly, I'm really okay with that. So I'm happy to use Natalia's Student Debt Crisis and theborrowers.org as the preliminary resource. Use me for backup and second opinions.
Great. Just a couple, we've had still a few people ask about recordings of webinars and PowerPoints. So there are recordings on our website at www.hsgforhousingcenter.org/media. There'll be a recording of today's webinar posted, and we have some of the older webinars posted there as well. And I circulated that. And then as far as the PowerPoint, you can download from the Handouts tab. If you don't see that, just click the orange arrow that will open up the control panel. You should see a Handouts button that you just open up and can download a PDF there. Do all repayment plans qualify for the public service forgiveness option?
Again, not all the ones we discussed today, but I would caution that word all because of extended graduated repayment. It's something, again, with these older borrowers before 2010, we just did a seminar with nonprofit leaders across California. Majority of them had graduated, let's say, between 2004 and 2008. Some of them had consolidated to a direct loan, yet we're still on a graduated repayment, therefore they didn't qualify. So I would, qualifying payment plans are just as important as the qualifying loan. But income-based repayment, as long as they have a direct loan qualifies, pay-as-you-earn qualifies, and repay, those absolutely qualify, because we know in order to be in pay-as-you-earn or repay that you would have had a direct loan.
All right. Somebody had asked if you're switching between the different plans, does that have any impact on the clock that's running towards forgiveness?
No. As long as it's the same loan, you can switch plans and you don't lose time. You do lose the time, or you reset it, if you consolidate, because the time runs on the loan. When you consolidate, it's a refinance. It's a brand new loan. That will reset the clock. But switching plans does not reset the clock.
All right. So this is going to get a little to the side, but a few people had asked, in light of the election last week, is there any expectation of changes happening? I know we had talked about this a little before we got live. Does anyone want to say anything about that?
So,
go ahead, Natalia.
Yeah, so this is changes. But the best thing is we don't know. I think that this is based off of the budgets we've seen from Republicans and Democrats. There has been talk before to get rid of some of all of the repayment programs. Public service loan forgiveness is always on the chopping block from both sides. Often one side will just want to cap the amount of forgiveness. The other side wants to get rid of the program entirely. I will say, from what we hear from folks in the district, that the more we enroll people, the people enrolled will be essentially grandfathered in and will still be able to take advantage. When we get to public service loan forgiveness, we'll show you how to enroll for a program that doesn't exist. It's an employer certification form. As to that, everything else, I think at this point, at least from our end, would be speculation. And we just want to keep making sure that we enroll people. I don't know if you have anything to add, Josh.
No, that's exactly it. It's I hate to quote Bush, but it's, stay the course, 1,000 points of light. Right now, we have to do what's in front of us, and we don't know what's coming down the pike. We can speculate all we want, but it doesn't help anybody. Certainly doesn't help our clients. So we just have to go on. What I would encourage folks to do is, if you want, I know there are a bunch of blogs out there. Natalia, I don't know if you guys have anything. I can tell you that I have a blog, and I did do one on what could go and what might stay, because what's very important is that we stay within reality. And although people want to do things, there's only certain things that the new president can do, and there are certain things that Congress can do. And we all know that it's a fact. It's very hard for Congress to undo laws that they've passed. It's a little easier for them to alter them. It's my personal opinion that public service loan forgiveness won't be axed, but I think they might cap it. But my personal opinion means nothing. We really just have to wait and see what happens. That's the best we can do.
Yep. And just with the, again, I feel like a broken record, but just stress enrollment. The more people we get enrolled, then the harder it will be to take it away from people. So if we can reach that White House goal of 2 million and more, then there will be more people to fight if they try to take away the programs that already exist.
Awesome.
That's
Thanks.
my activist point of view.
No, it's a good one. I think it's important to keep stressing, and we will certainly keep reminding people of that. Someone asked if they could share the list of web addresses that you had at the back of the webinar to clients. That they have a financial resource document. Awesome.
The resources are probably your best source in terms of researching this on your own, and all of this is out there. IBR info is from TCAS, which is the Institute of College Access and Success, another really great website to go to. And then the Department of Education as well, for folks, has a bunch of their own webinars. We personally feel that there are, they could be better, which is why we created our own, but there is an entire list of tools at financialaidtoolkit.ed.gov.
And the borrowers does have a lot of different resources collected there, right?
Yep, we've curated from the Department of Education's website because we heard from our members that they had a bit of difficulty navigating the Department of Ed's website, so we just tried to make it more consumer friendly.
I've had that experience personally. A few people had asked about someone with a permanent disability. Someone asked if federal loans were forgivable for someone with a permanent disability. Someone else asked if they could be immediately, I guess, discharged, so there wouldn't have to be like an annual application. Could you just talk a little about that?
Okay, so what we're talking about is total and permanent disability discharge. Someone has to be exactly that, totally and permanent disability. It's not enough that they're just on SSDI. It's a very simple application process. They fill it out within 60 days. They hear an answer back. If the loan is discharged, there is then a 3-year review period during which they follow that person to make sure that they're not suddenly making income. And the income standard is the poverty index for a family of 2, no matter what the situation is of the borrower. As long as the borrower doesn't make more than that in the following 3 years, the loan is permanently discharged after the 3rd year. And that's the simple process. And they can apply no matter what the standard of their loan, the status. They can be in default, they can be in repayment. The problem is when they get that discharge, they also get a 1099-C, which is a potentially taxable event. They get taxed on what's forgiven.
Okay. Here's a person who, so they have a Parent Plus loan. They've been working for a nonprofit and paying on it for several years. Is there any way for them to switch to qualify for the public service loan forgiveness without losing those years of eligibility?
I think I missed the beginning of that. What?
Can you ask
Go
that
ahead,
again?
Natalia.
I'm sorry, Matt.
Yeah, sorry. So someone who, with a Parent Plus loan, working for a nonprofit that's been paying for, they just said several years, they asked if they could switch to repay, I assume, or any other
No.
of the.
Here's the
without
problem.
losing the eligibility.
They didn't lose any eligibility because they were never eligible. You're not eligible until you have those 3 factors all lined up. 1, the right job. 2, a direct loan. 3, on the right repayment plan. If any of those prongs are missing, they never qualified. So they can start qualifying by, because it's a Parent Plus loan, they have to consolidate it to get it as a direct consolidation, which will then qualify only for income contingent repayment. They can't have any other plan based on income. So once they consolidate, they have the right loan, and then they put on ICR for the right payment and their job. They've got to have all 3 of those at the same time for 120 months.
But I will say parents with those right loans, if the parent is working in public service loan forgiveness and they do have a direct loan, parents can qualify for public service loan forgiveness.
Correct.
But as Josh mentioned, they have to have all those factors lined up.
All right. Here's someone who's just describing a situation with a client that seems kind of strange, so was hoping you can maybe shine some light on it. So a person was on they describe it as a Naviant 30-year standard monthly payment. The payment was $1,700. That person switched to public service loan forgiveness, and the payment.
Sorry, you can continue, but you can't switch to that. But yeah, I'm sorry, continue.
Okay, so maybe signed up for public service loan forgiveness. Still with a standard 30-year monthly payment, it went down to below $1,200, so $500 less. They say the total amount owed didn't change, the interest rate didn't change, or the payment plan. So it seems like just by signing up for public service loan forgiveness, the payment was dramatically reduced. Is that?
So I think this is an issue of vocabulary, which so many people get confused, including the loan servicers. You know, I actually wish student loan servicers would say, I don't know, more often, because they give people the wrong information. Public service loan forgiveness is a program for public service work workers. It is in no way a repayment plan. The only thing that can happen when you do your employee certification form, which is the way you, quote, sign up for the program, when that happens, you get moved to a new loan servicer, which is something called like just a Fed loan is where you get moved to. But public service loan forgiveness in no way affects your interest rate, your monthly payment amount, none of that. So it could be that they got put onto a different repayment plan. When I'm hearing 30 years, what I think is a graduated or extended graduated repayment plan. But public service loan forgiveness has nothing to do with it. This would be a great instance to contact either us for the basic information or Joshua to go over, and I would actually, on this case, suggest Joshua to go over the NSLDS, find out exactly what the situation is, and then what the right questions to ask are when we figure out the correct vocabulary.
Thank you. Are there any down? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I just want to add to that. Just because you're on public service loan forgiveness, and more importantly, when you switch any payment plan, it doesn't lower your balance. It doesn't change your interest rate. You don't get public service loan forgiveness until after you've done all 120 payments. Nothing happens until then.
Yeah, so it sounds like it is what Natalia said, just a matter of terminology.
Yeah.
Are there any downsides to consolidating federal student loans?
The only downside that I know of, and I don't know if this is worth it, is you lose the ability to get your loan out of default with consolidation, because once all of your loans are consolidated as a direct consolidation loan, you can't do it again. If you default on that consolidation loan, it's harder to get out of default. You can still do it, but you've ruined one of your life rafts. That said, I don't think that is the best reason to not consolidate your loans. But this is an issue on a case-by-case basis, and I would never give a generality on this.
All right. I'm glad I found there's a ton of questions, and I will apologize in advance because I know we're not going to get to all of them, but did just find one that I know folks will be happy to answer. So do you have any information on schools that have closed and their students weren't able to finish their studies and they have student loans? I'm kind of thinking this in terms of the for-profit schools. I don't know if that's, yeah.
So again, so the vocabulary on this is you want to be looking up closed school discharge information. There are, as of now, there's only specific rules for students that attended Corinthian College. Let me take a step back. There are rules and programs put in place for folks that attended a closed school. That goes for all students. This usually are for-profit college students. Then after the closure of Corinthian colleges, we saw more generous rules put in place for Corinthian students, which extended the amount of time they could get their money back. There's current a push for policy changes and regulations to extend those Corinthian that Corinthian package of relief to those who attended ITD Tech and other students. So it is a little all over the place. We'll cover this a bit more when we talk about defaulted loans. But the rule of thumb for all students is if your school is closed and you attended within 120 days, you can get your money back on your federal loans, but you need to apply for it. If you feel that you have been defrauded by your school, whether it's a for-profit or traditional college, there's something called the Borrower's Defense to Repayment, and you can fill out that form and ask for the Department of Ed to investigate. At that point, your loans will actually be put on a 6-month, I believe it's a 6-month or 9-month forbearance, while they figure out if you have been defrauded. Another great place to research is looking at the Department of Education. They just issued updated rules to the borrower defense. So borrower defense rules is another thing to investigate, that and closed school discharge. We do have a section on closed school discharge at theborrowers.org.
Great. This is, I think, a great question for this audience specifically. So if you are working with a client and you need to contact the servicer, they asked who is the best employee to speak with, and this person said that a lot of times you'll call and get a new trainee or someone who doesn't really understand how the plans work. So do you have any advice for counselors who are trying to contact the loan servicer, how to do that more effectively?
I always ask for a supervisor or a manager. The problem is often you don't get any better answers when you get higher up. I'm going to be honest, calling your student loan servicer is very difficult, and the information you get often is not correct. You need to double check for yourself. That's something to hold on to. I don't know, Josh, if you have any other suggestions, but I always ask for a supervisor. But unfortunately, unlike other credit products where when I speak with a supervisor, I actually feel like I'm getting somewhere, I haven't had as much success in the student loan world.
One thing you can do, I like asking for a supervisor. Sometimes if you don't like the answer you get, just hang up and call back because you know that you get different answers all the time. The other thing is all servicers have an ombudsman or an elevated customer service group. Navient has the Office of the Customer Advocate. These are all offices based in the U.S., and they are all better trained customer service, and they usually know what they're talking about. So if push comes to shove, just ask for the ombudsman of that particular servicer, and you'll get better customer service.
All right.
The other thing I would say, just one more thing to add on that, if you get bad information, if you are lied to, if you are told, for example, you don't qualify for a program and you do, we strongly urge you to submit complaints to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. They are now accepting and responding to federal loan complaints. For a long time, they only did private. They are getting back to folks faster than the Department of Education. We're seeing about a 20 to 24 day time with the Department of Education and a 24 to 48 hour response time for the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. They can get involved and intervene on behalf of your servicer. So if any complaints, even the smallest, please go to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and let them know what's going on, and they will intervene with your servicer.
Great. Maybe the last one or two questions, and we had a few on qualifying for public service loan forgiveness. One about what constitutes full-time employment, and one about what employment qualifies for public service.
So as we said, we will be going over this, but for those folks on the call today, any nonprofit, C3 nonprofit, so C4s like Student Debt Crisis are not applicable. If you're a C3, C4, as long as the folks are being paid under the C3, then that is fine. Any state work, any government work, if you are a custodial worker at a school or at a church, that will work. Working for a church or religious institution does qualify, however, not time spent as a minister. It's more time doing clerical work. Anything outside of your actual ministry would count for religious institutions, but state, government, and nonprofit.
Okay. I think we've really done a great job here. Remember, next week, same time, we'll talk about delinquency and default on student loans, and then the following week, we'll do a whole section on the public service option. We'll talk about loan consolidation. We'll also talk about what to do on private loans, and both sessions will have room for Q&A. Really appreciate people's questions, very much on target. Obviously, people are engaged with us, and that's very helpful. Please give us your feedback on what's helpful in these webinars. We really are appreciative of the time that people commit to them. Big thanks to our friends at Student Debt Crisis, at AFL-CIO, and at Student Loan Attorney, Lawyer. Really thank you a lot for all the good work you're doing, Natalia, Cody, Sarah, and Josh. This is Bruce and Matthew, and I think we're going to sign off here on this note. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Till next time.